But there's another Islamic community which few know about. Starting tonight and continuing all week, I'll bring you the exclusive results of a 7-month look at blacks in Islam. Tonight, how civil rights activists from the 60s have found a home as Muslims in the 80s. Some say it's a religion of revolution. Others say it's a faith meant only for inner peace. In America, Islam has attracted an amazing number of activists from the turbulent 60s. A Vietnam vet who once trained Black Panthers is now the leader of a conservative Detroit mosque.
Your condition will never change until you change what's in your heart.
A security man for Martin Luther King now leads the Nation of Islam chapter in Detroit.
We don't smoke, we don't drink, we don't gamble, we don't commit adultery, and all of these things that the society is doing.
An avowed Black Panther revolutionary is an Islamic minister to jailed Muslims.
And we don't fear dying. There's just absolutely no fear of death for us.
A former activist in the Urban League is an Orthodox Muslim serving time for taking hostages.
I feel that I'm the conscience of America for what was done.
And a 60s revolutionary named H. Rap Brown is now a Muslim fundamentalist in Atlanta, Georgia.
He has created the races that men might get to know each other, not that they would despise each other.
Black Muslims represent many different viewpoints and roles. Some are flag-waving Americans, others want radical change now. But all believe passionately in a religion that has changed their lives. But few realize Detroit is the cradle of the Black Muslim movement. It's where the first mosque for blacks was built in the 1930s. Michigan was home to Elijah Muhammad and Malcolm X, men who made headlines by calling whites devils and calling for black separatism. But a lot has changed in 55 years. Today, some denominations still embrace black nationalist themes, while others refuse to bring race into their religion.
Metro Hospital.
Some of the most conservative Muslim blacks can be found in the poorest sections of Detroit. Lukman Abdullah is a cab driver. His meager income supports his wife and 10 children who live on the second story of this dilapidated mosque on Joy Road. The apartment ceiling is collapsing. The floor is crumbling. But the children are clean and well-behaved. They learn Arabic at home so they can understand the Holy Quran. Lukman Abdullah's wife is covered head to toe in order to avoid temptation. There is no eye contact with her. Despite the bleak surroundings, Lukman refuses welfare.
Because if I had just dwelled on myself and my dreams of having wealth and having a family and these things, having a good life, I would have never become Muslim.
Beneath the apartment is the mosque. Lukman is called the imam, or spiritual leader. There's only a space heater to warm the room in sub-freezing temperatures. Lukman and many others like him believe in revolution, but not the political kind.
There's no way of escaping that. Sooner or later, it's going to be some type of revolution in America, pertaining to Islam, pertaining to the people either accepting or rejecting, and so it will be a war.
Americans mostly see Islam as a foreign religion, connected only to political strife. They see revolution and hostages in Iran, terror and murder in Lebanon, and contempt for America from Libya's Muammar Gaddafi. Yet despite the radical image of the religion, Muslim American blacks defy stereotypes. They're devoted to a strong family unit.
What word is this?
Daddy.
That's good, Danielle.
They are committed to education and discipline.
You ready for this class this morning?
Yes, sir.
And they often oppose radical action. Still, some denominations have a strong racial and political program.
You should be separated because...
One which has angered some Orthodox Muslims and alienated advocates of integration. Well, Lukman Abdullah has found a personal spiritual revolution in Islam, while others add a doctrine of black nationalism to that. Tomorrow at 5, we'll take a look at the Nation of Islam's economic and social program for the black community.
You know, Mort, Malcolm X addressed this question in the autobiography of Malcolm X, The Contrast in Black Islam, but it's amazing. How does it compare to the Islamic religion in the Middle East?
One of the things we learned in doing this series was that some Afro-American Muslims believe exactly as Orthodox Middle East Muslims do believe. They're looking for spiritual growth, for a universal kind of religion. But as you're going to see throughout this week, there are sharply different versions of Islam within the black community and what is Islamic religion. Now, as you saw just a few moments ago, there are dozens of Muslim denominations in the black community. Many of them hold different views of what the religion means, and Muslims are constantly fighting American stereotypes, linking them to Middle Eastern violence. Here to explain some of the differences and the misconceptions is Abdullah El-Amin, who is spiritual leader of Detroit's Muslim Center. Imam El-Amin, welcome to 5 o'clock Focus.
Thank you.
I guess the one thing that really came through to me in the time that we spent covering this story and interviewing many, many different black Muslims was that there are a lot of variations. It's almost like Protestantism. You have such a diversity, those for whom it is purely a spiritual experience, all the way out to the ones who are really revolutionary, quite angry in their rhetoric, and quite separatist. Where is the real Muslim religion?
The part of the religion that unites everyone is, first of all, we believe in God, whom we call Allah, and He is the ruler of the world, the universe, and we all believe in the Prophet Muhammad, the last prophet who came over 600 years after Prophet Jesus came into the world. So these two things are what unites Muslims all over the world. Now, there are lots of different personalities in any religion that people will adhere to different tenets of their own beliefs.
Personalities like Louis Farrakhan.
Louis Farrakhan and others.
But aside from the personalities, the policy difference, the different stance, some black Muslims say we want a separate nation, we want a separate state, we don't want any integration, we don't want anything to do with white society. That's not your position.
No, it's not my position, but there are a lot of Christian groups that also have the same feelings. You know, you have Christian Methodists, Episcopalians, Presbyterians, and they're all reading out of the same book.
So
you have the different Muslims that are reading out of the same book. You have in the Jewish community, you have the Orthodox, the Reform, the Conservative, and they're all reading out of the same book. But
so my comparison to Protestantism was not too far off.
Not far off at all.
These are different groups within the umbrella religion of Islam.
Yes, sir.
What is the difference between your interpretation of the faith? I guess more fundamentally, how do you come to your kind of an interpretation of the faith and somebody like Louis Farrakhan come to a very different position in terms of black-white relationships? You're reading the same Quran, right?
The thing that brought me into the religion was the fact of a belief in God. And the basic tenet of Islam is one of peace and progress, you know, progress for the human being. Revolution of the mind. I hear a lot on your program. You talk about the revolution, and you speak of revolution in terms of physical armed confrontations. Actually, Islam is more a revolution of the mind, a more of uplifting of the human being, uplifting of the human spirit.
Well, that was not true in Iran, however, where the Khomeini came to power.
Yeah, but we're talking about the Muslims in the African-American community here in the United States. Now,
so the African-American Muslims do not identify with that brand of violent revolution?
We're all Muslims. See, just like you find Christians, some are Protestants, some are Baptists, some of this. You know, we're all Muslims.
Imam El-Amin, we thank you very much for joining us tonight. I wish we had more time, but as you know, we're going to spend the entire week looking at this subject. We thank you for your contribution. We'll hear about a well-known black Islamic sect called the Nation of Islam. Some believers dislike their doctrines. Others have praised their economic program, that of their leader, Louis Farrakhan.
You suffer from being in the midst of white people, and they...
Parts of Minister Farrakhan's agenda have angered Orthodox Muslims and alienated some advocates of integration. In part, the Nation of Islam believes integration was designed to deceive black people. Blacks should be separated from whites in America. Blacks should not be forced to fight in American wars. Minister Farrakhan first hit the national spotlight as a supporter of Jesse Jackson's 1984 bid for the presidency. That's when he spoke unabashedly on issues like tokenism.
A few token blacks in window dressing positions can never solve or ameliorate the problems of the masses of black people.
On the Jewish religion.
How many of you believe that if you preach righteousness and practice evil, you are practicing a dirty religion, but using God's name to shield it?
On media accuracy.
You will be forced to show cause why I shouldn't sue you and all of the media combined. We must put a stop to this.
Some of Farrakhan's greatest supporters come from revolutionary Islamic countries.